please welcome Nick Brana. Nick, I'm a big fan, as you know, but I feel that we may have parted ways on our approach to the presidential election in the US. So let's get that out of the way first. I would ordinarily have automatically supported the candidate of the People's Party, although I would still have had a view on other candidates, a ranking, if you like, of who would be the very worst victor of the presidency. But I've got to tell you, for me, notwithstanding one in particular huge disagreement, I think that Robert F. Kennedy is the candidate behind which everyone should get. And it's not impossible in the polarized field that we have in US politics that an avenue is opening up for an RFK win. What's your point of view on that?
It's good to see you again, George. Good to catch up. Yes, absolutely. In fact, RFK Jr. is, I think, the only independent candidate who has a realistic chance to win now. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been talking recently about whether he will mount an independent run for the presidency or run with a third party as a result of the insane Democratic Party rigging that is happening in his election that exceeds even the rigging in the Bernie Sanders election. And if he does that, we did a poll, we commissioned a poll as the People's Party, and we found that, in fact, 63% of people would like to see him leave the Democratic Party and go independent, run as an independent, whereas opposed to 37% of people would rather see him stay with the Democratic Party. And even more impressively, in a matchup against Biden and Trump, Bobby Kennedy gets 17% as an independent already. And he draws equally from Biden and Trump, which is amazing. 17% support would make him the most successful independent candidate since Ross Perot. And Ross Perot, who also ran as an independent in 1992, he was actually winning the race against Clinton and Bush Sr. with 37% of the vote to their 24% each. He was a full 15% ahead as an independent on the ballot in all 50 states to the two establishment candidates until he dropped out for a few months and then from July to October and then re-entered. But had he not done that, he probably would have won that race. Bobby Kennedy could do that now. The Democratic Party is a complete dead end for Bobby Kennedy. But if he's able to place the country and the people that he's looking to represent above the political party of his family that he's been his whole life, then he could win. And he is the only person who could do that. And we need to break this cycle, George. Every 4 years here in the United States, there is some progressive or populist who runs with the Democratic Party, who it seems like the first time they generate all this excitement, Bernie Sanders the last two times, but going back decades before that, they get cheated by the party establishment every single time. And every single time they fold right back into the establishment, they endorse the establishment candidate, they fold the movement back into it, and nothing comes of it. We have to break that cycle now. And Bobby Kennedy seems to be realizing that there is no future. He referenced on a podcast a couple nights ago the DNC fraud lawsuit. The Bernie supporters actually filed suit against the DNC in 2017 after the DNC rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders. And they said, you misrepresented the impartiality of the primary. It's in your DNC party charter that you have to give us a fair primary, and we want our money back. Well, the party argued in court. It said, we're a private corporation. and we're entitled to rig the primary, and we'll give the nomination to whomever we want. And so it seems to be dawning on him that the independent path might be the only one. And if he can do that, then we might finally break out of this cycle of jumping from Democrat to Republican, Democrat, Republican. He could win as an independent.
Well, Democrat to Republican, Republican to Democrat, with nothing changing. It's not that, if choosing Tweedledee rather than Tweedledum made any blind difference, one could see the point, but nothing changes. It's a uni-party. They have the same foreign policy, they have the same economic policy, there are some hot-button cultural issues, pronouns and the rest that might differentiate one from the other, although each will have a liberal and conservative wing within it, even on those issues. But nothing really changes. And breaking the cycle is what I have long been interested in. Throwing a huge spanner in the works so that those works don't work anymore. And I have never seen a candidate better qualified to be the president of the United States than Bobby Kennedy. I mean, on everything, on the economy, on the environment, on big pharma, on labor issues, and of course, most importantly, overwhelmingly most importantly, his determination to end the forever wars, to stop the United States' headlong rush into what could end the entire planet and the human race. What's not to love, Nick?
In fact, he seems to be the only candidate, George, who understands existential risk, both from nuclear war, but also from engineered pandemics and from artificial intelligence. We are simply out of time as a country and as a planet. We're developing technologies that could now wipe us out. Bobby Kennedy understands this. He talks about it. Hundreds of AI researchers signed a letter in May saying that artificial intelligence poses an existential danger to humanity, and yet they're barreling ahead with developing it for profit and raw power without any kinds of safeguards. So we're absolutely out of time. We have to make this kind of change now. The fact, George, that he draws from the Democratic and the Republican parties evenly actually gives him a level of immunity from the spoiler accusations that third parties generally face, because it makes it so that neither party can claim that their supporters are just benefiting, the greater evil by supporting him. I've never seen a candidate that draws evenly from Democrats and Republicans and is extremely popular with independents and non-voters. He could bring in millions of people. 100 million people don't vote in every single election that we have, George, because they've completely given up on the two parties because they understand that nothing's going to change with them. So he has this unbelievable opportunity. Another thing that was amazing that we found when we looked into his support in running as an independent, which this is the first time that somebody has polled him in a head-to-head matchup between Trump and Biden as an independent, we found that he has more support among the general electorate, the American public, than he does in his own party. He gets a higher share of the vote in the general election than among Democratic primary voters, which, of course, the primary is completely rigged. But when you're running with Democrats, what remains of the Democratic Party is unfortunately the people who are watching MSNBC and CNN, who are the most propagandized people in the country. And you're trying to win an election that is already rigged and you're supposed to win a contest among those people. It's ridiculous. But if he goes independent, and he said he's going to decide, actually, George, in the next 2 weeks, by October 15th. So this is a rallying call to everybody This is our best chance to break the cycle, is to call on Bobby Kennedy to go independent. Write him, tweet him, share it on social media, write into his contact on his website. If you see him on the campaign trail, call on him to do it, because it's either this or it's another dead end. The rigging, that the lengths to which they are going to rig it, is insane. And what people don't understand is that the DNC is essentially the Biden campaign. The Democrats and the DNC would rather lose the election than with Biden than win with Bobby Kennedy. This is the same dynamic with Bernie. I was lobbying the superdelegates as Bernie's national political outreach coordinator in the 2016 campaign, on his campaign, and I was showing them month after month polls that showed that Bernie was leading Hillary by double digits against Trump in the general election. They chose to lose. They knew that they were walking into a loss. But the thing is that all of the DNC members, all of the money that they get, all of the consultants, the vendors, the whole ecosystem of the Democratic Party is dependent on the funds that the Biden campaign raises for it, because they have a fundraising vehicle, a joint fundraising vehicle called the Biden Victory Fund. It receives hundreds of millions of dollars. And then that money is distributed from the Biden campaign to the DNC, to all of the 50 state parties, to the vendors, the staff, the consultants. If you took that money away, the money that is the lifeblood of the party, that corporate big money, the party would collapse. And all those big donors, the whole party apparatus, all of the staff, the vendors, the consultants would be gone. They'd be out of a job. And so it's existential for them, for the party. They don't care if they're going to lose. They're going to pick the person who is going to keep the gravy train rolling for them, and they have no shame. They will rig it to whatever degree they need to. So this is your shot, Bobby. Go independent.
Well, you say you were surprised, and some will be, that he was drawing from both Trump and Biden in the polling that you did, but I'm not. I mean, first of all, because I'm much older than you, I remember what a Kennedy Democrat was in the 1960s. That was his father's pitch. Not a Democrat, but a Kennedy Democrat. This means that you stood for values, you stood for things that were definitely different from the moguls, the barons, the LBJs, and the Mayor Daley's, and all the crooks that rigged the convention in Chicago in '68. And if Bobby had not been murdered, who knows what they would have done to stop him becoming the candidate, Bobby Sr., I mean. By the same token, a lot of people vote for Trump not because they're actual Republicans, but because they hate the elites, they hate the nabobs, the billionaires, the riggers and the fixers, and the people who regard them as a basket of deplorables. Such people can be won by Robert Kennedy. They don't have to vote for Donald Trump, who, let's face it, kind of lives the life of a nabob, albeit different in his political approach to some political issues to the nabobs on the Democratic side. So I can well see an independent run by Robert Kennedy creating a constituency for the future, because this will not be his last rodeo. Although he's not young, as a matter of fact, he's a year older than me, but he's vibrant and healthy and strong, and he could run again. He can influence the course of American politics, even if he doesn't win. What do you say?
I think that I completely agree. And to see a Kennedy, of all people, place the people above the party apparatus, I think it would be so symbolic. His campaign has rooted itself around this concept of heal the divide in the country that is so polarized, although I really believe it isn't as polarized as the media tells you. There's a commonality of interest among all of us. We all want to live a good life. We all want to end the wars. We're all outraged by the money that's paying for the social services and the business subsidies in Ukraine while people don't have food to eat here in the United States. And Bobby Kennedy opposes that. So I want to tell you something, George, that I actually sent him recently, that I emailed to him and to Dennis Kucinich, his campaign manager, another person I have a lot of respect for, in telling them why they should go independent and why they should take action, really, against this party, and that there's nothing left to save. This party has become the Democratic Party. It has become the party of Wall Street and Big Pharma and Big Tech and the CIA. It is an extension of those interests. It is like all of those deep state interests had come together and formed a political party. So here, even more so than the Republican Party at this point. And so here's what I told him. I said that people want someone who is going to fight as hard as they are desperate. It could be that galvanizing moment of national clarity and agreement that could catapult you forward. The ground is so fertile for that moment in this country right now. These are the moments that make campaigns. Bernie never had the courage to confront the party, but you can. Have faith in the movement that you have awoken to respond. Have faith in the American people. Have the guts to be bold and to take risks. People respect the fighting spirit. We won't defeat the machine any other way. Let's call the question on the Democratic Party, because if we don't, they will rob you blind and dash the hopes of everyone who supports your campaign. Then our country will be ripped apart by exploding war, poverty, dollar collapse, elite conflict, and before long, some existential catastrophe like a nuclear war, engineered pandemic, or weaponized AI.